Hello beautiful people and welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be talking about all the books I read in 2024. So my reading goal for 2024 was 60 books and I actually ended up reading 92. So round of applause for myself. I actually don't have a lot of the books because I do use the library quite frequently. So obviously they are back at the library now. So a lot of them I don't have, and then some of them are on my Kindle, and then some of them are audiobooks, so obviously I don't have the physical copies to that. I know some people like buy the physical book when they listen to the audio or read the Kindle book, and I feel like unless I'm absolutely in love with it, I won't buy it because I'm not a frequent rereader, so I feel like it just sitting on my shelf as like a physical trophy is just kind of like a waste of space. But anywho, I digress. So let me pull up my facts, not my facts, my stats for last year. The app is kind of being a little slow today. I don't know why. Maybe they're doing updates on it or something. So my reading goal was 60. I read 92. 33,362 pages. My average time to finish is 6 days. My highest genre was romance, followed by a close second with it being contemporary. I don't know if you can see, but for me to have that many different genres when I used to be mainly just a thriller mystery girl, pretty proud of myself. I have a lot of different things there now. 43% print, 18% digital, 38% audio. So formally, it's 20,881 pages and 380.55 hours of listening time. My most read author was Elsie Silver because I read the whole Gold Rush Ranch series and the Heartless series as well. Followed with Jennifer Lynn Barnes and Lauren Asher tied for second. And then my average rating was 3.66 stars. So it's honestly very hard for me to give a book 5 stars. You basically have to be perfection because I know there's some people who give out 5 stars pretty easily. I'm not one of those people. It takes a lot for me to give a book a 5 stars. I'll put you pretty up there, but to like get a 5 star, like this year out of my 92 books, only 6 of them got 5 stars. So take with that what you will. My highest number of books rating. Does that make sense? Anyway, I rated 20 books at 3.75 stars, and then 18 books at 3 stars. Wow, I can't talk today. Let's just talk about all 6 that I rated 5 stars. So first off, we have The Naturals by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. I'll start with these two since I have the physical copies. Loved this book. I love Criminal Minds, the series, and this, she describes it as Criminal Minds, but for young adults. It is a young adult book, but I loved it. Absolutely loved it. I did read the entire series, so I also read Killer Instinct, All In, and Bad Blood. And this one I gave a 5 stars. The only reason why the other ones weren't 5 stars is because Cassie's the main character in this book. And the other books talk about the other teenagers that are in this like crime solving group, but it's always from Cassie's point of view, even if the books aren't focused around her. You know what I mean? So I kind of wish that, like for instance, Dean is one of the other guys. I wish we would have read Dean's book from Dean's perspective. You know what I mean? Instead of all 4 of them being from Cassie's perspective and her being the narrator, I would have loved to see it written from their perspectives too. So the whole series was good, but obviously The Naturals was my favorite because it's Cassie's book told from Cassie's point of view. So there's that one. And then I have Listen for the Lie by Amy Tintera. This was my March Book of the Month pick, and I loved this book. It was such a quick read, and it's about Lucy, who was found covered with her best friend's blood on the night that her best friend died. So, and she doesn't have any memory of what happened. And she refused to do any interviews or anything like that over the years because she couldn't remember the night, and everyone just basically blamed her for her best friend's death. And then she ends up going back to her small town for her grandmother's birthday party and agrees to meet with the podcaster. And as she is talking to him and being in the town and stuff, she starts to remember things about that night. And it's basically her starting to remember what actually happened to her best friend Sabby. So I really liked this book. I've read a few of like the podcaster style books, and I didn't really like them as much as I liked this one. So this one was my favorite. It was 5 stars. It was a pretty easy read. There are a few graphic parts, especially like when it's talking about what happened to Sabby. But other than that, loved this book. So my next 5-star read is actually the 3rd book in a series, and it's The House Witch by Delimhawk. I don't know how to say her name. But yes, so it's the 3rd book in a series. We read the first one with my friend Valerie in our book club. I gave that one, I think, a 4-star. And then the second one I gave 4.5 stars. And then the 3rd one was perfection. Okay, I absolutely loved it. Every like emotion you can experience in a book, I did. Like I mean, I don't cry easily in books, but like if I did, I probably like would have cried because it provokes that emotion. I laughed out loud. There were parts where like my heart was pounding and I was like, oh my god, what's gonna happen next? You know what I mean? So like every emotion The House Witch 3 gave me. So this was probably my favorite read out of all my 92 books. This one right here. I read it towards the beginning of the year. I still think about it, okay? And it's now January 1st. And I still think about this book very frequently. If I could give it more than 5 stars, I would. This is my favorite book of the year. So I would definitely recommend the House Witch series. It's about a man named Finn who is a house witch, obviously. But he goes to work at a kingdom and witches are being hunted. Not being hunted, but witches aren't like the favorite for the kingdom. And so he hides his magic from people. And then it's the story of how he went from like this quiet, reserved, isolated person into ending up like the beautiful person that he grew into. And there's so many different characters that I loved and different characters that I wanted to punch. And like literally, I loved this book so much. So my number 1 book of the year would be The House Witch 3 for sure. But obviously you have to read 1 and 2 as well in order to fully enjoy book 3. You know what I mean? So if you haven't read this yet, I would definitely recommend this one. It was fantastic. My next one was actually an ARC that I received. It was my first ARC. I read 2 ARCs this year. I'll be talking about both of them. And this one was the first one that I got. My next one was The Best Friends Playlist by Jessica King. This is a friends to lover, closed door, clean romance. So it's perfect for YA in my opinion. And it's about, I forgot their freaking names. Paige and Jordan. It's about Paige and Jordan and how they've been friends since they were young. And Paige admitted her feelings for Jordan, but Jordan didn't reciprocate. So then they didn't talk for 7 years. And then the book is basically them reconnecting and obviously falling in love with each other. And Jessica King has a playlist that goes along with the book. So if you like to listen to like specific playlists while you're listening to your books, you can do that with this one. And it was really good. I loved it. I flew through it. I think I read it in like a day and a half. It was very nice. But yeah, so that's my other 5-star read. My next 5-star read, I don't have the physical book of because I read the audiobook or listened to the audiobook, but it is Daydream by Hannah Grace. And this is Hallie and Henry's story. I read Icebreaker and Wildfire last year, and from the second I read Icebreaker, I was like, I need Henry's book. Like, I need more of Henry. And then finally, we got a Henry book. So I loved it. I loved who Henry was as an individual. I loved who Hallie was as an individual. And then I loved them coming together as a couple. It was great. I loved it. It was the best book in the Maple Hill series, in my opinion. 5 stars for sure. And my last 5-star read, I don't have it because I actually borrowed it from the library. But it is Just for the Summer. I feel like I was watching a few top books of 2024 videos, and this one was in a handful of people's videos that I watched. So there's Part of Your World, there's Yours Truly that I also read last year, and then the third one is Just for the Summer. So this book follows Justin and Emma, and basically Justin posts a thread on Reddit talking about how he's cursed, and every time someone breaks up with him, they end up finding the love of their life. And as a joke, he's kind of like, does anyone want to make a deal with me and, you know, try to find the love of our life? So the title comes from Just for the Summer because Emma and Justin are like, hey, that same thing happens to me. Let's make a pact and see if we can find the love of our lives. And I liked this book because it was realistic, relationship-wise. Like, I feel like sometimes with romance novels, they could be a little too lovey-dovey and not, you know, like realistic, I guess. But I did love how this book was written. There's a lot of quotes in there that I also loved as well. And it was a great way to end the series. And then you also got to see Alexis and Danielle from the first one, and then Brianna and Jacob from the second one. You got to see each of those couples again in this third book. So I loved it. I loved the way she wrapped it all up. It was fantastic. And yeah, those are my top 6 books, I guess. No, those are the only books I gave 4 or 5 stars to this year. But this one is a 4 star, so it was pretty close. This is Brianna and Jacob's story, as I mentioned. Brianna is getting divorced. Jacob is an ER doctor. She's a nurse, and then they end up running into each other, and it turns out that Jacob actually has anxiety. So at first she thinks that like he's kind of a dick, but really he's just very reserved because he has anxiety. So I liked how she was able to take like such a serious topic and still weave it in and talk about it so nicely. This was actually the book of the month's 2023 book of the year. So book of the month's 2023 book of the year. There we go. So that's when I ended up reading it, was in January. But yeah, so I like this book. I loved Part of Your World too. And it wasn't until like I got halfway through this book that I realized it was the second book in the series, because I listened to Part of Your World on Audible 2 years ago. And then it was like halfway through this book that I realized it was in the series. So loved the whole series, but obviously Just for the Summer, which is the third one, was my most favorite one. Those are my top books of 2024. Coming in close seconds would be The Front Runner, which is the Gold Rush Ranch 3. I rated that one a 4.75. And then Killers of the Flower Room, the Osage Murders and the Birth of the FBI. I learned a lot in that book. I ended up reading the book and watching the movie. So if you haven't seen it yet, it has Leonardo DiCaprio in it. And I learned a lot about the Osage tribe that I didn't learn before, which I really appreciate. And it takes place in the 1920s during the gold rush, where settlers were expanding more west, and basically like how that whole thing and how they interacted with the natives and all of that. So if you haven't read that book, I would recommend it. Again, it's called Killers of the Flower Moon. And then let's talk about my least favorite books for 2024. Let's see. So I gave 2 books 2 stars, and they were my least favorite. And I feel like this first one's going to be so controversial because I know a lot of people loved this book. But it would be Hooked by Emily McIntyre. I listened to this on Audible, and I will say this. If it wasn't like an adult Peter Pan retelling, I feel like I would have liked it a lot more than I did. But because I genuinely enjoyed Peter Pan as a child, to like hear this version of it, I guess I kind of like skewed my outlook on it, and I didn't enjoy it as much as I feel like I would have if I didn't originally read Peter Pan. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? So I gave it a 2 stars. Like I said, it would have been rated higher if it wasn't a Peter Pan retelling. Would I read more Emily McIntyre books? Yes. I actually have one on my book club list with my 2 best friends. We have her newer one, Hexed. that we'll be reading this year. So it didn't like turn me off completely because I did like her style of writing. I just feel like I would have liked it more if the characters weren't named after Peter Pan characters. You know what I mean? So my other lowest book of the year was Love from Scratch by Caitlin Hill. This one I actually rented from the library, and I didn't read anything about it. I just quickly browsed the section. I was like, ooh, this cover looks adorable, and I grabbed it. 2 stars. Okay. This is about 2 interns, Reese and Ben, and basically they're both interns, and they're competing for a cooking spot at their show or at their job. And it was Ben was an enjoyable character, but I could not stand the FMC. And I feel like if you don't like a main character in the book, it strongly changes your opinion about it. And I just couldn't vibe with Reese. She actually really annoyed me. And she's more like, she was like one of those people where instead of like taking accountability and admitting that she did something stupid, and she was just like, oh, it's the patriarchy. And I'm like, no, Reese, it's because you did something and the outcome wasn't what you wanted it to be. Okay, let's have some accountability here. So yeah, it was it had some cute sappy moments and some funny food puns, but other than that, she was a whiny woe is me character, and I couldn't vibe with it, and she just really annoyed me. So those are my least favorite books of the year. So I talked about my most favorite, which was The House Witch Book 3. I talked about my least favorite. And then my favorite character was Finn in the House Witch series. A close second would be Stefan in, which one was his book? A False Start by Elsie Silver in the Gold Rush Branch series. That would be my runner-up. Next character. My cringiest book would be Hooked by Emily McIntyre. Like I said, I already went into that. I'm not going to get into that again. And then my most surprising book would be The Return of Ellie Black by Nico Jean. I read really good things about this, and I had high hopes for it. But I feel like sometimes with thriller books, like they can start off good and then all of a sudden they take a turn, and I'm like, that would never realistically happen. And I feel like for fantasy books, I can let that slide, or even for romance books, I can let that slide. But for like thriller / mystery books, I can't let it slide. So I feel like this would be my most surprising. So yeah, that's it. Those are all my favorite reads for this year. I did get to read 2 ARC books, as I said, and I would love to get more ARCs in 2025. I think that would be something fun to do. And the other one I gave a 4.5 stars. It's called The Gifted Heart by Tiffany Davis. It's Marks of Inheritance, the Orkia Cycle Book 1. And the only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars is because it ended on a cliffhanger. And I hate cliffhangers when I know the next book is not in the foreseeable future. I know she said she's working on it, but it's probably gonna be a while till I have it. So I might reread this before the second book comes out, just to like refresh my memory. But yeah, this was the other ARC that I got, and it was also very good. It's a closed door, cleaned fantasy. So if you have any young adult readers, or if you're just an adult that doesn't enjoy like the smutty scenes, that's a good fantasy book as well that you can enjoy. And yeah, my 2025 reading goal is 75 books. So I did 60 for 2024. I'm going to bump it up to 75. And I think it'll be fine. And yeah, so those are my main book goals, just to read 75 books, read more ARC copies, and read more indie authors as well. And yeah, that's it. Let me know what your favorite or least favorite reads were in the comments down below, and I will see you guys in my next one. Bye.